Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. So listen, man. Eddie Hearn and Jake Paul are going to end up fighting. Eddie Hearn is the beef. Well, it goes back from when Eddie Hearn, I think he's frustrated with the fact that Jake Paul, as a YouTuber or an influencer, has been able to make so much money off of boxing. Eddie Hearn doesn't think highly of Jake Paul. You can tell when he's talking to him and how he kind of talks down to him, almost in a very dismissive manner. And we all know Jake Paul is a guy who's going to say what's on his mind. He doesn't care. And I do think he's a little bit crazy. And he definitely is a problem child, like he likes to call himself. But Eddie Hearn had a sparring video that came out a little while ago with a guy named Frank Smith. And if you haven't seen that video of Eddie Hearn sparring, it was only body shots, but you can see that Eddie Hearn does have some boxing skill. And I think Eddie Hearn's like 6'5". Nevertheless, Eddie Hearn is really getting annoyed by Jake Paul. Jake Paul's been in the media saying that, not everybody's lucky to be like Eddie Hearn and inherit his daddy company and not have to work for anything. And those are things that I know Eddie Hearn doesn't like, because he already doesn't like Jake Paul. The two of them are going back and forth. Jake Paul, obviously growing up, not many people believed in him, in his ability to go out and do anything. I guess he didn't have the best grades in school, got in trouble a lot. Teachers called him dumb. And sometimes not all teachers have the best interest in students. Not all teachers have the most patience. And not all teachers have the best leadership qualities. And not all teachers are the most articulate. So if you got a guy like Jake Paul who may be a class clown, disrupting the class, when a teacher, as an adult especially, loses their cool, they know very pointed things they can say to a child to really crush him. And I think that's what happened to Jake Paul a lot. So it affected his esteem, affected his confidence, but the man rebelled. And look what he was able to go on and do, being the clown, being the guy who people said has no future, will never amount to anything. He took that personality, kind of out there, that adults didn't like, and found a core audience by doing YouTube. Got involved in Disney and Hollywood as well. But if you look at what he was able to amass his career into, and the way it just kind of broke out and kind of fragmented into different areas, you have to understand what Jake Paul, his mentality is, I can do anything. Went from probably having no belief to having all the belief in the world. So when Eddie Hearn is calling him an average fighter and telling him he'll never be a champion, and then Jake Paul is trying to hold his position as far as the 5 opponents he fought, Eddie Hearn gave him a little credit for Tyron Woodley. That's not enough to Jake Paul. But Eddie Hearn's like, hey, me calling you average is not an insult. It's actually a compliment. You're no longer just a YouTuber. You're a boxer, and you're taking the sport serious. But the whole time Eddie Hearn's talking to him, he's, almost in a sarcastic way, very dismissive, and just you could tell he's getting under Jake's skin. But Jake has a way to get under people's skin as well. And he's not going to let any of that ride, because now he's in social media taking jabs at Eddie Hearn about Eddie Hearn and the fact that he's had everything handed to him, silver spoon in his mouth, etc. But the thing is this. Eddie Hearn, during the two of them had a face-off, and they were discussing how big a fight would be if he was to fight Jake Paul. And saying in the UK how so many of his fellow countrymen would like to see him get knocked out. He said it'll probably do 2 million, it'll probably sell 2 million in the UK alone. And he was saying, but I can't fight, so I wouldn't do it. Now Jake Paul would do it. But Eddie Hearn's like, nah, I wouldn't do it. He feels like Jake Paul can really fight, average at best, but he's saying he wouldn't do it. But the way he's saying it is like he doesn't want to, like he believes he can beat Jake Paul, but he's just saying it to just kind of kill the topic. But now Eddie Hearn has come out, and now he's saying how he has guys on his roster who would, with one professional fight, who would clip Jake Paul. And Eddie Hearn said that even he could beat Jake Paul, and Jake Paul is really no good. Now, basically, he just issued a challenge to Jake Paul. And Jake Paul's not going to let that ride. I'm telling you that right now. Jake Paul is not going to let that slide. Jake Paul's going to go at him. So Eddie Hearn is out here basically saying he can kick Jake Paul's you know what. And I have a feeling this is going to lead to the two of them squaring off. Now, Eddie Hearn has dropped weight. I don't know if you guys realize this. Eddie Hearn has dropped weight. You know, over there throughout Europe and most other countries, they don't go by everything in pounds and inches and stuff over here. It's a different system is used. But they talk, okay, I just screwed that shit up. They talk stones. We talk pounds over here. I was getting confused with the money. But yeah, they always talking about their weight in stones. We say pounds, and they all talk centimeters. We say inches. But Eddie Hearn has dropped, I guess, a couple stone. And people are trying to figure out, some of the guys who are over there, the media, they're trying to figure out why he's dropping weight. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Eddie Hearn came out here pretty soon and issued a challenge to Jake Paul, because Eddie Hearn's a businessman. Eddie Hearn's been sparring. And if you didn't know, Eddie Hearn boxed as an amateur, very short-lived, but for a couple years. And a couple years is more than enough to carry you and, you know, into your 40s, 50s, and 60s. You learn the basics, especially throwing straight punches, how to get your weight behind your punches. Just throwing straight punches alone can get you far in a fight. So if you watch Eddie Hearn sparring, his ability to sit there, catch shots on his arms, keep his eye on his opponent, you know, and when he lets those shots go to the body, you watch Eddie Hearn walking around, kind of posture, almost looks like he may have slight scoliosis because he's always slumped over because of his height. But you watch him sparring, that's not the same Eddie Hearn. I'm telling you, Eddie Hearn can fight. So do not be surprised if these two go at it, man. Eddie Hearn, he knows, he's a businessman. He knows how much money he and Jake Paul fighting, how much they can make. I have no doubt in my mind Jake Paul and Eddie Hearn breaks all pay-per-view records. I'm very serious, because Jake Paul brings a lot of viewership, a lot of money to the table, and Eddie Hearn is probably one of the more well-known promoters. He's still kind of close in age to a lot of the boxers, you know what I mean? But like, he's within 10, 20 years of a lot of the guys who's on his roster. Not like the Bob Arum, Don King, some of those guys who are, you know, 60 plus, 70, 80 years old. It's hard for them to identify with that younger generation. With Eddie Hearn, he can identify him. You go watch videos. He's on the boat dancing to Drake songs, throwing hearts, and, you know, look like he's enjoying himself. So it's good to see a young spirit, young soul in Eddie Hearn as a boxing promoter, but he really feels Jake Paul is a joke. Jake Paul's not going anywhere. He feels Tommy Fury and Jake Paul is a 50-50 fight, but Tommy Fury would beat Jake Paul. And these are all things he said to Jake Paul's face. But now he's coming out and saying that he will beat Jake Paul. And I just see this heading somewhere that I like, because I would be so funny to watch Eddie Hearn get in there. But the thing is, right, what if Eddie Hearn knocks out Jake Paul? Or just gets in there and goes, you know, 6-8 rounds with Jake Paul, and Jake Paul can't get him out of there, and Eddie Hearn outboxes him, and Eddie Hearn wins the decision. You know what that will do to Eddie Hearn's profile? Oh my gosh, man, that shit would be, I would be cracking up. But I'm not making this up. This is real, this stuff that Eddie Hearn's saying in interviews. And I was shocked when he said it, because there's obviously, they don't like, they work together for a common cause. There was a common ground there, but they really don't like each other. And Eddie Hearn has been very open about what he says about Jake Paul, saying that, you know, he'll never go anywhere in boxing. This is just a short run as long as he keeps fighting nobodies. He has gotten better as a boxer, but he'll never, ever get out of the average category. He'll never go far as being the elite, because it's just the competition is so stiff. It's there's levels to it. And he's saying Jake Paul doesn't have it. And he's saying Jake Paul, a guy just comes and walks off the street, picks up boxing, and decides after a couple of years he's going to go in there and fight Canelo. He's like, it's impossible. Like, that's an unrealistic expectation of oneself. And Jake Paul, of course, because if he believed in what everybody told him, he wouldn't be where he is right now. So Jake Paul feels he can get there, and Eddie Hearn's like, nope, and that was annoying Jake Paul. But now Eddie Hearn's gone on record, and I think it would be amazing, and I think they would make millions and millions of dollars. And I think Eddie Hearn will go ahead and throw himself out there because he's already saying, and this is the thing you got to watch out for. Eddie Hearn's saying, I can't fight. He even said that he was the P word one time in an interview, and he was like, the only way he would fight is if someone disrespect his mother. He said that he would go and fight. He'd probably get his butt kicked, but he's going to fight if someone disrespects his mom. And I remember him saying that, and I was like, okay, but you watch his sparring. Eddie Hearn is no pushover. I'm telling you right now. It's out there. He's fighting a guy named Frank Smith, I think. Go watch that sparring video. Eddie Hearn, he has hands. And if he gets there with Jake Paul, how hilarious it would be if Eddie Hearn KOs Jizzle P. Jizzle P better watch out because that fight may be coming, and it is going to be fun to watch. But anyway, man, that's the latest and greatest. I wouldn't be surprised if they somehow work something out to where now Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, they're going to do huge numbers again. But if now you got Jake Paul and Eddie Hearn fighting as a co-main event, how amazing would that be? But we'll see, man. Anyway, appreciate you guys watching the video. But I definitely expect more to come because Jake Paul's not, he's not going to let this go. He's a marketing genius, and Eddie Hearn should have just remained quiet because now Jake Paul is going to be a thorn in the side. And it's just going to build up the fight for Serrano and Taylor. This could be a little marketing gamesmanship on Eddie Hearn's part by saying this and getting people talking about him and Jake Paul, which in turn gets people talking about the Serrano-Taylor rematch. At the same time, if he and Jake Paul decide to go and fight each other, I think that would be huge. And, I mean, how insulting would it be to a Mayweather, to Muhammad Ali, to Joe Frazier, to Pacquiao, to AJ, and these guys who have done, record-breaking pay-per-view numbers, for Eddie Hearn to come out with Jake Paul and they do like 4 million pay-per-view buys and break all-time records. You'll never hear Jake Paul. You'll never hear the end of that from Jake Paul. But anyway, man, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Shout out to all the veterans. I appreciate the support. Channel's growing, man. We just bubbled up. The numbers doubled in 2 days. Over 300 now. Pretty cool, man. Really appreciate it. That being said, y'all keep cool. I'm in the breeze.